right, hey guys, this is a series of off-season drills I want to show you and focusing on our feet. So assuming you've done a good general warm-up for your feet, I've talked about that in other topics, and it could go along with doing some other bouncy plyometric stuff or things where we're strengthening our toes. All that's great stuff. I just don't want to make it overly complicated and fry you with doing an hour warm up before you throw. That's, not a good decision, but also not doing anything and just going out and throwing, especially bad technique, doing drills. There's just no place for it, no benefit to it. It's all about good technique, all about moving our feet well and being balanced and flow into the throws with very minimalist drills and into more of our range throws. We want the range throws to be technically very solid and well. So again, this is more preseason, but could be applied to anything, anytime. I really love this quote from Utah State throws coach Ralph McGann. I think he's in the 70s era. If our brains were in our feet, we'd throw a lot farther. So the feet, just cannot say enough about that. In part one, I covered the footwear and the types of surfaces and why. So check that out if you haven't already. Make sure you have the right footwear and set up for whatever you're trying to do with the ground. This is a nice place for me. A little more challenging to move my feet with this throw shoes. This is the VS Athletic shoe, so it's got a little bit more grip to it. I'll show you this first drill. Depending on the person, sometimes you'll do better, and what we're looking for is just to feel, just kind of having this fun playfulness with intention. We want to move our feet well and flow through these different drills. Some will find it better to have a more static, isometric kind of way to build into that. I'd also recommend, by the way, to warm up your hips and knees and everything well enough where things are moving well. If things are really gummy and stiff, I'm not able to extend my hip, it's going to be really hard, if not impossible, to get my feet and linkage to do the right thing. I need to be able to have all this moving well enough. So kind of beyond the scope of the whole topic, but just being very mindful that the hips, knees, and feet are just so imperative for our throw. So first part here, we're going to come in and watch my feet. It's a little bit of a tongue twister one, but I love this wake up warm up. So what I'm doing is basically heel on one side. I'm pivoting on my heel, which we don't typically do in Highland Games. Some people can get away or have a natural heel turn into the weights for distance. That's another topic. And then we're going to go on the toe on the other foot. This is hard to do slow when you've been doing them fast for a long time or faster. So I'm up on the toe here and I'm pivoting. You see over this line, this just makes for a nice little reference point. And you see I go over the line and then I'll go back to neutral here. And then I'll go over and up on the toe here, heel here, and I'll pivot there. So a little faster, toe heel, and stay in balance while I'm doing this. I can move my arms a little bit, definitely get my head up and into it. I can watch my feet if I need to, but that's less functional. And why am I sitting there watching my feet? Because my brain really wants to connect with what's going on down there. And again, better to be up once I get going. What I'm trying to do is move smoothly into each position. Cross the crack on each side, each foot. Kind of like a dance move after a while, okay? So that's kind of option one. This just gets me turning my feet well here. We could easily transition into like some center pivot drills. This would be more for people that are open stone rotational people, but this still applies to anything. When I come through in my weight for distance, I'm still pivoting here and turning into that. I've shot some other videos and shared some other videos on those more specific drills. Again, this is the primer, simple as possible to get this going, but some people will just do better with these quarter turns. I've done some other videos on that, so I'm not going to break this down too much, but pivoting to where you can do at least a half turn. Again, this is a little harder shoe. If I'm in my throwing shoes on or in my Nike throwing shoes, the green ones that I've shared with you guys in the previous video, on this surface, it's going to move really fast. On harder surface, on more slick cement, it's going to move really fast. So I have to work for this, and I like that because I'm strengthening. My foot's having to work harder. My knee and hip are having to work a little harder, which is more like thicker grass. And if I'm wearing a shoe that has a little bite, I want to feel that kind of connection overall. So transitioning into that again throughout the off season would be a smart way to do it. And you can always backtrack if you have injury or you have something going on. You can always backtrack into something that moves glide smoother gliding shoe to wake things up, reconnect, simplify things too. So a couple more here. Indian clubs, don't even have to have clubs. You could really use, you know, a pair of shoes or anything here. Same kind of idea with this line here, but now I'm gonna be going, as I'm coming through, I'm gonna be rotating. I'm not so much trying to get on my heel, but what I'm doing is transitioning, and I'm coming through with a little bit of weight, and I'm trying to think about coming up. If you think about my hips really coming up and into the throw, again, stones, weights, anything here, even like I'm just gonna take off and sprint into that, or I'm gonna drive, think about like a martial artist, I'm gonna drive this leg up. So I'm stable, this is a block, or we talk about the power position, so this is helping our power position, opening and getting on this foot and more solid mid-foot transition and extending that hip while I'm pushing this hip through. So I'm coming through there, sinking down and up through. So again, nice rhythm to it, nice flow to it. Your brain, your body will like that connection. Very low demand on the body. So I could do quite a bit of this, especially if I'm a newer thrower and I don't have good footwork, or I'm maybe coming back from an injury. Lots of this stuff would be good. You could do up to, you know, minute sets at a time, or 30-second sets, take a break. You know, I'm a little out of breath. You don't want to be completely fatigued, but you can do a lot of work with that. If you set a goal of doing at least 5 minutes of this every day, would be ideal. Coming into the season would be a wonderful thing. Another option over here, I've had these forever. These are, I think they're called Slastics bands from Perform Better. These are ancient. I don't know if they still make them anymore. Otherwise, we have like these jump stretch bands, or these Rogue bands now, these layered bands, that can work well. Any of this, you know, depending on the event you want to get specific with, but the principle is going to be the same. This is some old stuff I've learned many years ago from John Gallagher, throws coach and Highland Games athlete. But what we want to do is get into, see, this is more like a stone throw. So I'm going to focus, get this arm here. I'm going to block. If we can come over here and get an angle on this hip, that'll help. And elbows up. So more specific to the throw, I can open the hand. Again, it's not exactly a throw, but you see what I'm focusing on going through here. And what I really want to do is make sure to drive this hip. So I'm really getting this foot up on the toe. I can't drive if I'm here. I'm gonna do this and dump my knee. That's not a good position, right? So I need to pivot this toe up on the toe, drive through and around, kind of up and over that foot. Knee gets cranked in, hip. You'll feel all this working while you're doing it. You might even get sore in some lovely places, new places. So this is really opening up that hip. And then I'm here and I can push through. Again, it's like slowing down, slow motioning the throw. Every good thrower, every good striker, fighter is driving from the hip leading there, boom, transitioning through. That's that kinetic chain, that whip, just like an Olympic lift, a caber toss, weight over bar is, you know, through that linkage in here into triple extension, and then the weight's floating up. It's the same kind of idea, but we're torquing and untorquing the body. This is what most people fail to do well, or transition their gym strength into the throws. And again, this is the simplest way to make sure we're doing this and prime our body. Get this hip here, and I'm straight leg here. We talk about blocking and coming up and over. Talked about that in another video. So I'm pushing this hip up and around where this one's stable. So this one's stable, stops moving. This one continues to move as far as I can take that hip. Both the hips are nice and open here. So again, you'll feel all that working. Glutes will fire hard. Basically, both glutes are firing, but this hip I'm taking all the way through and up and over the other hip even. So that's going to be very important for our stones as we're lifting and jumping into that. Somewhat on our weights too, it is important to try to get that hip all the way through. We're not coming up and jumping quite as much as with that stone, but we're still getting all that rotational power into the throw, and we don't want that upper body. You see people diving, just dumping that hip and going here, head down, shoulders down, of course, bad news for any throw. And then if we're shortening the arm, and doing this, it just becomes nothing. You know, somebody with that potential, when they're open in here, it can be exponential, could be easily, you know, double the distances kind of thing. Same with stone throwers that are just tight, weak, they don't get up on this leg and they just dump that stone forward, or they have to project it up to try to get some height on it. They'll push up there. It's just throwing off all those mechanics. If we get that linkage, get our feet moving well, get up into that strong power position, again, all this can do it well. We can play around with the band here again, more specifically for weight for distance, back here, and I'll just come out. I'm not trying to move this here and open that up. Actually, one of the easiest places to start, almost forgot about this one, is just like, we'll use like a fence can work, or any immovable object, and we'll go here, reaching down and back, and I'm trying to pivot, you know, this good place to start and get strong in that position. There's a ton of torque going on here. My body's working very hard. I'm shaking to try to get this going. So I'm torquing again, this foot, knee, hip, opening that up, just sitting back here, holding on. See that turning? I'm not pulling my body. That would be ideally a great place to start. Again, solidifying that torsion in there before going to this, because a lot of people just don't have this ability, this awareness, and they'll start pulling into that. What I want is this to go first, and I'm letting this hold me back, and then I can try to pull into it and feel that. So I need to go here first, boom, a little faster motion. See that transition there? Boom. So this thing is very loaded up. I'm still long and relaxed. That is maybe the ticket as a thrower. Again, to transition your gym strength, all your big, massive muscles, getting them to coil or cork up and uncoil there, and take that transition, that kinetic energy from the feet all the way into the implement and get it to go far. Could be the same said with a golf club, baseball bat, any throwing and striking activity. We need to do this well, and it always starts with our feet. It needs to go up through that linkage as efficiently as possible through, you know, basically one side to the other, and from bottom to top through that whole transition. So anything within that realm could all be, you know, get creative with that, moving our feet well and choosing bands and into more complex areas. Last one we're going to cover in the third part of the series here is on medicine ball throws and more dynamic stuff. So stay tuned for that one too, and check out the first video if you haven't already too.